Welcome to Monumental Moments, where we live to multiply His movement. I'm Melissa Machenbacher, and this is a place we passionately pursue and proclaim Jesus. Today's monumental moment is titled $50 Bill. If you've ever watched the classic movies from the 1980s, there's a good chance you're familiar with the famous scene that's quoted in one of the movies. It says this, $50 bill, $50 bill, $50 bill. $50 bill, $50 bill. Guys, there's hundreds of them. $50 bill. The scene is from the adventure comedy Goonies. The movies continued to stay popular amongst families and children for decades. And though cash is seldom used anymore, when I see a $50 bill, I chuckle and recite the scene in my head, doing my best to even add the accent. If you've seen the movie, I'm sure you remember the scene. If you haven't, it may even be worth finding it to watch the 15-second clip. I had an incident once, not with a $50 bill, but with a $100 bill. Ironically, it was in the late 80s, a few years after the Goonies movie was released. Unfortunately, my situation was quite different. This is a story I do not believe I've ever shared before, and it's about to expose some things. I was at a small hometown bakery to purchase fresh bread to take to Grandma's house. I waited patiently for the owner to help the man in front of me as we stood in the small bakery with the fragrant aromas of flour and butter and sugar. It smelled like donuts in there. There were just 2 customers in the building, and I was one of them. The man in front of me proceeded to place his order, move down the bread case filled with the delectable pastries, check out, and pay for his order. This is where the sweet story takes a turn for the worse. As the man paid for his order, I noticed that a bill dropped from his wallet. Not a $50 bill, but a $100 bill. I went to say something, but instead I paused. I believe I was about 16 years old and barely driving. I want to say I was young, but I was old enough to know better, even though I had not yet surrendered my life to Christ. The right thing to do would have been to speak up and to tell him, or pick it up and give it to him. The moment slipped away, and the man walked out of the store. As I made my way further down the glass showcase toward the old school cash register, I found myself standing over a $100 bill. Lacking integrity, I reached down and picked up the money and swiftly added it to my wallet. There was nothing sweet about this little girl during that moment. Within seconds, the man who dropped the money re-entered the store. He frantically asked the bakery owner if he mistakenly gave him a $100 bill when he paid. The owner went on to explain that he didn't get a $100 bill for payment, but instead a $20. I stood there amongst the 2 men speechless. This happened over 35 years ago, and I'm still scarred from my actions. The man looked around on the floor, retraced his steps, and then looked at me. I had a choice to make. I could tell the truth or tell a lie. As much as I did not want to admit my actions, I made the choice to stand up and tell the truth. It was hard, but it was the right thing to do. I reached into my wallet, grabbed the $100 bill that I had just picked up off the floor, and I handed it to the man. I explained that he had dropped it on the floor, and I handed it over to the rightful owner. That hurt. I was embarrassed and ashamed. I paid for my bread and donut and went out to the car, sitting in guilt and shame for quite some time. I've never forgotten that moment or that feeling. I was wrong. That was not my money. I did not find that. I essentially stole it. The right thing to do would have been to make the man aware of the situation immediately and help him get his money back. As I think about my life before Christ, I have several marking moments like that costly $100 bill scenario. That did not reflect godly character. Instead, it exposed my sinful nature. Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." There's no way around it. Without Christ, my 16-year-old self was finding ways to justify my selfish actions and behavior. I was not following Christ's standards because I was willfully choosing to live a life without Christ. I had standards all my own, and they were not His standards. Have you tried to justify ungodly behavior? Perhaps it was years ago, or maybe even days or hours ago. If there is sin you are trying to minimize and justify, are you ready to call upon the name of the Lord and follow His higher standards and not your own? Isaiah 55:6-9 says, "Seek the Lord while He may be found. Call upon Him while He is near. Let the wicked forsake his way and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, that He may have compassion on him, and to our God, for He will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than yours, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Do you need to stand up and admit you are wrong? By the strength and power of Christ in us, we can live a life that honors the Lord. What non-negotiables can you put in place that will help you live a God-honoring life? How can you make monumental moments and live to multiply His movement today?